published, and if you haven't had a chance to see it, you can get on there and it will give you a basic outline of what we're trying to accomplish. There is a decent amount of work between now and April that we're asking you to do. And the reason for that is that we really want you to get prepared so that we can jump right in once you arrive. So we're laying some foundations in both literature and history over the course of the next number of weeks. And some class periods, Aaron Easley will lead those classes, and some classes I'll lead those classes, and then our last class on April 18th, again, we'll co-lead that. But we've divided up the weeks depending on what we're trying to work through. So in terms of the schedule, next Monday, we're going to have somebody come in from the BYU security office who's going to do a security briefing and some other logistics. We will begin our presentations. The only reading that we have for you to do next week is this culturegram. It's quite short, but it was sent out by Professor Easley in the welcome email. So if you haven't had a chance to read that, just read that, and it'll give you a chance to start thinking a little bit about UK culture as we move into those group presentations. March 18th is going to be a bit of a lecture and discussion on early British literature. And you'll see over here that there's some readings. You're going to be reading 3 Norton anthology introductory chapters. And for those of you that haven't had a chance to do that yet, there's a lot of information in there. It's quite dense reading. It's not. It's designed to give you an introduction to periods of English literature. So Professor Easley will be leading that class period on the Middle Ages, the 16th and 17th centuries, and then the Restoration in the 18th century. I'm going to introduce my summer course the next week on March 25th, where we're going to talk through the syllabus for the British History and Politics course. And we're going to have you read from a book by Lawrence James called The Rise and Fall of the British Empire. Because we don't have a ton of class time, even in London, and because British history and politics is an enormous subject, the course that I'm going to be teaching this summer really focuses on 3 themes. The 3 themes are empire, we'll be studying the British Empire; war, we'll be studying World War I and World War II; and democracy, we'll be studying British democracy. And because Winston Churchill intersects with all 3 of those topics very nicely, we're going to be using a biography of Churchill as a bridge into that. So in the course that I'm going to be teaching, there'll be 3 books. There'll be a book on British politics, there'll be a short biography of Churchill, and then there'll be a history of the British Empire. All of those books are available in Kindle format on Amazon. So you don't have to lug them around if you're comfortable reading on a device or on a computer. The only one that you'll need for this course is the Lawrence James History, Rise and Fall of the British Empire. And if you go onto Amazon, you can buy download a Kindle text for $15 there. So that book you will need for this course. If you are the kind of person that really prefers paper, and I know some of you may be like that, beware this is quite a thick piece of paper. And that if you commit to that, you're going to need to find a place in your life for it. The literature readings, for the most part, are going to be available in the London Centre because they have a copy of the Norton anthologies there. And the Norton introductions are available on Learning Suite, right, in PDF format. So you don't have to purchase anything to do those readings. I'm also going to be leading the course on April 1st, where we're going to be talking about the development of the British Empire, and you'll continue to read from the history of the British Empire there. This is actually not quite right. The actual title of the book is The Rise and Fall of the British Empire, but I've shortened it to History of the British Empire there. And the reason for that is that once we hit the ground in London, we're going to start in 1900. And there's a lot that happens before 1900, and I want you to get a handle on that before you arrive. All right, and then we'll go back and do later British literature, and Professor Easley will lead this session on Monday, April 8th. And then we'll have a conclusion where we'll introduce you to the syllabus for London Walks, which is our London Exploration course. That course is where we have embedded a bunch of cultural assignments for you. So you have, in addition to walking around and exploring, we have some expectations that you will participate in our film series. We're going to be showing you 10 films over the course of the term, and we ask you to watch 5 of those of your choice. We're going to introduce you to British music and ask you to do some listening assignments with that. You will have an assignment to see some live performances, either theatrical or musical, and ask you to be able to report on that as well. And we're going to ask you to make it into some museums. So we're not going to be going to too many museums as a big group, but we're going to ask you to decide what do I most want to see and have a chance to go out and do that. And so those will be the primary assignments for that one credit course on London Walks. And I think it'll just be really fun for you. And it's highly customizable based on your own interests. The one writing assignment that you will have for this term is due Friday, April 12th. So that's the Friday before our final Monday class. It's not very long, and you'll upload it to Learning Suite, but it is what I call a personal experience plan. We're expecting you to think in about 3 double-spaced pages. What is your personal plan for customizing the London experience to your personal and academic interests? So as we go through the calendar, you'll see a bunch of things that we're doing together, but you'll have some space. It's not a ton of space, but you'll have some space to do some exploring on your own with other folks. And we really want you to be thoughtful about how you use that time. And so this assignment is designed for you to figure out, what do I want to get out of this experience? What kind of web research do I need to do to make a plan so that I get to go and do the cool stuff that I want to do? And at the end of that 3 pages, we're going to ask you to come up with 1 page that you're willing to share with the rest of the group, which is a list of at least 5 places that you plan to go in London, and annotate that. So a couple of sentences on each of those. This is what I'm going to make sure that I do during my free time in London, and this is why. This is the kind of experience I'm hoping to get out of that. And then that will allow us on our last day of class to help match you with other people who have similar interests, who might want to go out and do the same kind of things. Some of you may really want to go to a football match, or some of you may really not want to do that. We are going to take you all to a cricket match, and probably none of you want to do that. But it is a critical educational experience. Okay, and so when you look at the grades for this course, you'll see, let's see if I can see the assignments here. It's relatively straightforward. We do have an expectation that you will attend this course. Again, if you're not enrolled, if you're not formally enrolled in that class, we encourage you to attend regardless. We're going to ask you to just report out on your reading for this class. We're not going to test you explicitly on the reading. We're going to ask you to report and that you have done it. We're going to create some opportunity for discussion and hope that you'll participate in that. You'll have a chance to participate in a group presentation, and then you'll have that personal experience plan. Okay. And those are the assignments between now and April. What questions do you have on those? Yes, and tell me your name.
Josie.
Josie.
Are we going to get a list of all of the books that we need to purchase, that we should start reading maybe, or the?
Yes.
Cool.
So I will introduce that when I introduce my syllabus on March 25th. But they're just 3, okay? And the one that you need for this course is the Lawrence James Rise and Fall of the British Empire. Yes?
Will your syllabus be sent out?
Yeah, I can make sure it's available to everybody. Yeah, that's great. In fact, in my course, there's a fair amount of writing. It's not a ton. It's a lot less than I would be able to assign in Provo. But there will be 2 essays that you will do, and the first essay is actually due the week you arrive in London. And you're not going to want to write it then. And so I'm actually giving you the prompts to those essays in the spring here, so that you can read to the essay. And as you read, you can say, oh, this is relevant to that essay. Yes?
I was just gonna say, how heavy are the courses while we're there?
Well, we can speak to that individually. My course will involve at least half an hour of reading a day on average. Okay, it's not a ton, but you're not going to be reading every day. So, think about 4 hours or so of reading a week. And then there will be some short writing assignments. There will be a British democracy assignment where I'm going to ask you to actually figure out what the main issues in British democracy are and what your position is on those issues. And then you will have, everybody's going to have 3 short field assignments. And that might sound scary, but it's actually, yeah, it's a little bit scary. But it's not hard. It's fun scary. Which is that we're gonna have you go out in groups of 2 or 3 and actually interview people to ask them about their perspectives on a couple of issues. So there's a field assignment on, what do you think are the top issues facing Britain right now, right? You're just gonna go out and we're going to gather like hundreds of interviews and figure out, from our own field research, what's going on, right? What do Britons care about? There's a short field assignment on British identity. So we're going to give you some questions to ask people about how they see themselves and try to understand what their identity is like, and we'll have a chance as a class then to talk about, well, what did we learn about British identity. And these field assignments literally take 90 minutes, so they're not long. It's just we want you to talk to people and not only to talk to BYU students while you're there. Okay, does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Other questions about the spring? Yes?
Did you get to say how heavy your course is?
Yeah.
Oh, very heavy. We've worked very hard to try and make our courses comparable. So the assignments are somewhat different. And yeah, so some of the types of reading and types of writing that you'll do will certainly differ, but they'll be pretty equal. And you'll have a good sense of that, I think, once you see the syllabus from each course. So the first day that I present in a couple of weeks, I'll give you my whole syllabus, and you'll kind of see what's going on there.
Yeah.
As far as like signing up for classes, how does that work with, are we supposed to do that right now for you guys' classes, or?
You can, they are now available, so if you go, you can sign up for your summer term classes.
Yeah, and that's a great point. So the British History and Politics course is called Europe 336R, and what's yours called?
English 300R.
English 300R.
And the London Walks is, what is it, IAS, is that what it's called? International and Area Studies, IAS 201R section, I think it's all section 1 actually, just because we're the only
London Walks.
London one, so, yeah.
Yeah. If any of you are interested in, for the British History and Politics course in not taking a European Studies course, but want the political science version of that, which is Poly 351, let me know. The one person that had asked for that is no longer going to be able to join us, so I haven't put it up online, but if you have a preference for having a political science course number on your transcript other than a European Studies course number, just let me know and we can make that happen. Yeah.
Do you mind repeating the courses for summer?
Yeah, Europe 336R and English 300R.
And if you see Eastleigh or Meekham, you know you're on the right track.
Kennedy?
So if we aren't at BYU, do we register for those classes the same? Okay.
You do. You know the.
So I saw an email today about like my learning suite or whatever.
To get access to learning suite.
Getting in there, yeah. So how do we do that?
As long as, if you send us your net ID, just your net ID, we don't need your password, but your net ID, then we can add you as a guest
Okay.
to have learning suite access.
So you have access to this kind of thing.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Although you don't have to enroll in this course. is
And
on
if you have any
graduation.
trouble getting into the actual courses, just call the Kennedy Center. They're really good at all that kind of backdoor stuff.
Other questions about registering for classes? Okay, I'd like to just make some preliminary assignments for your group presentations right now. That's okay? I'm just gonna read out the presentation I've assigned you to do. If you are having second thoughts and would like to talk to me after class, you can do that, all right? So for next week, our first presentation out of the gate, Sonia Meekum, Laurel Roberts, and Kennedy Cofer. I assigned you to do that, okay?
Is that the?
That's the geography
Geography.
assignment, the first one. Class system, which is also next week, Sarah Stone, Alana Hafen, Emma Fox, and Rachel Johnston. Okay? What I can do afterward is I can actually send out an email just to those in your group so that you have the email addresses of everyone in your group and you can coordinate, okay? On the 18th of March, on the British school system, I have Sarah Burgess. Is it Burgess or Burgess?
Burgess.
Burgess, thanks, Sarah. So Sarah, Ashley Holdaway, Lauren German, and Matthew Johnson. And on language differences between British and American English, I have Rachel Finlayson, Adam Strathern, and Nathan McQuarrie. Okay? On royalty, I have Sam Jorgensen, Tabby Caldwell, Shelby Shipley. And Laurel, we might have you do that one too. I'll get back to you on that. Emily Strong on history, Stuart Truman on history, Sophie Jorgensen on history, and McKenna Davis on history. On British nationalisms, this is the 1st of April. I have Janessa Cloward, Candace Brown, Nick Neeser, and Chloe Sampson. On 1st of April, in terms of government, I have Joshua Richardson, Josie Larson, Laura Detweiler, Maya Donnell, and Ellie Gersner. 8th of April, in church history, I have Laura Chatham, Emily Powell, Jane Edwards, and Haley Wallen. And then on entertainment, sports, and so forth, on 8th of April, I have Tanner Risk, Drew Sutterfield, Emma Risk, Sydney Southwick, and Lexi Allen. Okay? If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to email me or see me after class, and we can probably swap you out pretty easily.
Could you
Yes.
pass the paper around again, just so we can see the dates
Pass the paper around.
that had like, our
Dates and
preferences on it?
titles and descriptions.
Yeah. Do you want just to know yours?
Just to know my date, or you just tell me.
And the descriptions are, the descriptions are on Learning Suite as well.
Okay.
So the blurbs that we passed around are available on Learning
Ask
Suite.
them the date.
And you're on the 18th of March.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? All right, I'd like to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about calendar and introduce your family.
Awesome, okay, yeah, so my family has arrived, so stand up, family. Lincoln's thrilled about this. So this is my son, Lincoln, who's very glad to be here in front of you. He's actually a real better sense of kind of the day-to-day. So you see there on Tuesday, June 25th, that's when all of you need to arrive, and we're hoping to have some kind of a get-together that evening, just kind of welcome everybody and talk things through. The next day, we'll have our first day of classes there in the center. You can see the topics, and when you get an actual syllabus, you'll have a little bit more detail there. But we'll have class that morning, and typically on our class days, we'll have one class from 9 to 10:15 and the other from 10:30 to 11:45 or something. So basically, class in the morning, 9 to noon, and then the rest of the day is open. And then on Thursday, we're going to have our first big day in London, and it really is going to be a splash. So we'll go to St. Paul's that morning. We'll go up to the dome. You'll get to look all around the city and at the inside of that magnificent cathedral and at the stairwell where they filmed Harry Potter and all kinds of stuff. And then we'll go to the Tower of London, another really iconic site. From the tower, we'll take a river cruise over to Westminster, to Big Ben and so on, and then we'll step right across the bridge there and take a ride on the London Eye, which is a pretty neat way to see the city from high up also. So you'll get 2 high up views of the city that day. This is the day that my wife's not excited about, not being a fan of heights.
It's not the heights that
It's the motion. Yeah. Heights and motion there. So that's, and that's something so as we interviewed with you, I think many of you maybe asked us about the schedule, and we'll generally have 2 class days and 1 day in London each week, and then an excursion day, and you'll see how that kind of reflects in the actual schedule. So class Wednesday, all those things in London. On Thursday, we'll still be done kind of mid-afternoon. Friday is a London Walks Day to get out in the city, start exploring. On Saturday, we'll take our first day trip. We'll go to some Churchill sites, to Harrow, Sandhurst. Those are schools that Churchill attended, to Blenheim. We'll have a screening that night of Monty Python. Yes. Okay, let's see if I can actually use my correct cursor here. The next week, I'll pick up the pace just a little bit here. We'll have class on Monday morning, and then on Monday afternoon, this is a little bit unusual, but we're gonna head out for an excursion. So we'll have class until noon, and then we'll give everyone an hour or so to go grab some lunch, and then we'll hop on a coach and we're gonna go out and visit Stonehenge in the middle of the afternoon. Then we're gonna shoot over, it's not far from Stonehenge, to the city of Bath. We'll give you some time to just go out and grab some dinner in the city, and then we'll visit the Roman baths in Bath, and then drive back to the center at night, probably get back at 10 or so. So that'll be a big day, but it'll be early in the program, so you'll be full of energy and excited. And Bath's really a fun place to be at night. On Tuesday the 2nd of July, we'll visit the British Museum and the British Library. They've got some amazing exhibits in both of those places that connect to coursework that we're doing. Then we've got our first overnight trip, so on the morning of Wednesday, July 3rd, we'll leave for Wales, and we'll go first to Cardiff and visit the Senate, the Welsh National Assembly. There, St. Fagan's is it's kind of a historical, cultural, everything. It's a big place with all kinds of different things there, so that's gonna be fun. We'll go to Caerphilly Castle, that's the castle I showed you a picture of before. And then that night we'll stay up in the Brecon Beacons, which are mountains back behind Merthyr Tydfil in Wales. I'll be talking about Leslie Norris, who's a Welsh writer that lived in that area, and we'll read some of his stories. I'm sure I'll let you hear him read some of his stories on the coach. The next day we'll overnight there in the Beacons at a YHA that's kind of a fun one. It's right up there in the hills. Anyone that wants to go hiking, we can do that. There's a big mountain there. The next day we'll visit the Big Pit Coal Museum and Tintern Abbey, and that evening we'll go to Gadfieldhelm Chapel, which is the first church building that the church had. So get some church history there. Then back for a London Walks Day. We'll also have a field assignment that day, British political issues, screen another film that night, an Austen film, Sense and Sensibility. And then we'll have another day trip. On Saturday we'll go out to Portsmouth, the dock area there, big ships, the Victory where Lord Nelson died, and so on, and then Chawton, which is a Jane Austen site. That was her literary home. So we'll talk about Austen in connection with that. The next week, we'll have class Monday morning, and you can see we're talking about Austen and getting into Shakespeare. Then we'll visit Westminster and Parliament on that day, and this is kind of it'll feel like a bit of a breather, I think, after our first week and a half. And then on the 10th, we've got another class day. The 11th, we'll go out to Oxford and to Stratford-upon-Avon. So we'll visit Oxford and see some Lewis and Tolkien and other stuff, and then go to the Shakespeare sites, and then we'll see Shakespeare's play As You Like It at the Royal Shakespeare Company Theatre there in Stratford, which should be amazing. You can see we've got some London Walks days with history, political science activities on the 13th, 12th and 13th. The next week is our week that we go to France. So we'll have class on Monday. We'll talk about some things that relate to our trip. We'll leave early Tuesday morning, and we can give you some more details as we go along on what these trips are going to be like. We can give you the itineraries once we've got it all hammered down exactly. But we'll go out to Dover. We'll take a ferry across to Calais, visit Dunkirk and Flanders, and we'll arrive that night in Paris. We'll stay in Paris a couple nights, so we'll have some activities in Paris, some free time in Paris, and a couple things we'll do together. We'll do a river trip on the Seine and visit the Eiffel Tower. Probably visit the Eiffel Tower twice if you want, because we're going to be about 2 blocks away. Yeah, so it's the Eiffel Tower is right by our hotel.
Is the Eiffel Tower and the Eye, are those things that we need to be prepared to pay for ourselves?
No, everything that we're doing together, and it's all
And
included.
at the Eiffel Tower, we're just gonna look at it, we're not
Oh,
gonna
we're
go
not
there.
going to, okay.
So I guess that is the thing, if you wanted to go up. If you're willing to march up the stairs, it's not very expensive. And it's not as bad as it seems. 420 steps to the middle of it or something like that. 16 or 17 minutes. Marion's done it. Okay. All right. Yeah, so we'll have some fun in Paris, and we will have some free time there. So 2/3 of the day or something there will just be open, and you'll have we'll give you metro passes and museum passes and all that kind of thing, so that whatever you want to do kind of there in the city at least you can do. So if you were wanting to go like out to Versailles or something, that would be additional. You'd have to figure that out and make sure you get back in time, but you can probably make it work. Yeah, so visit the catacombs the next morning, and on our way out to Normandy we'll stop at Giverny, which is a beautiful place, gardens, pink watercolors and flowers and stuff like that.
Monet's.
Yes, it's Monet's house. So, beautiful place. Then we'll go to